Hello everyone and welcome to the sixth video tutorial of this series. In this video tutorial we're going to talk about aggregate functions, which are different from the scalar functions that we talked about in the previous video. Especially we're going to talk about sum, min, max, average, count, and more. We'll look at some of the different aggregate functions that are offered by SQL Server and MySQL, two of the most popular RDBMSs. And I want to underline that there are differences between the capabilities of those two. We'll also look at two standard SQL clauses that are used when you're building aggregate queries. Group by, which is designed to group or aggregate different rows of your query, and having, which is used to filter rows in an aggregate query. We'll spend some time illustrating and talking about why there are different rules for aggregate queries. It's very easy to start writing those things and start getting back a lot of errors. And I'll try to walk you through some of the most common mistakes that people make with aggregate queries. So even if you don't stay away from those mistakes, you will recognize them and it will happen, and hopefully you'll be able to fix them a bit quicker. Now, aggregate functions are different from scalar functions. With scalar functions, which we talked about in the previous video, you had a single input value and a single output value. With aggregate functions, you have multiple input values and usually a single output value. So let's open up a new query window. I'm gonna write select count parentheses all from the customers table. I'm gonna run it and we get a number of 4. What I did here is I counted all the columns from the customers table. And this is telling me that there are only 4 rows in that table. It's taking multiple bits of input to come out with a single piece of output. Most aggregate functions are deterministic, meaning that giving them the same input, they will produce the same output every single time. Now let's take another example. Let's say we want to see the average item price. So we're going to select item price from the orders item. Okay, and we just say we want the average one. It's AVG parentheses item price closed parentheses, and we're going to select this part. I'm going to run it and we see that the average item price is $14 and of course 0.33 cents. Well, I guess this is a good time to show you how to combine aggregate functions and scalar functions together. And to do that, I have here a list of examples that I put together. We talked about the first one, we talked about the second one, and now I'm going to show you this one, the third one. I'm starting with the average item price, but rather than just returning that as a result, I'm fitting it as input to the round function, which is a scalar function. So I'm rounding the average item price to 2 decimal places. That tells me, let's run it first. Okay, and that tells me that the rounded average price of an item, of the items actually, is $14.03. Remember that the other time before rounding it, we had $14.0338. And this time we rounded it to 2 decimal places and it's showing $14.03. There are other aggregate functions out there like min, and max that you can see in this example in the fourth line. I'm telling it to return the minimum item price and the maximum item price, so the lowest one and the highest one from the orders item table. And we're going to execute it, and we get two columns back. First one being the minimum, which is $5.27, and we have the second column, which is the highest item price, which is $19.99. Finally, let's use the sum aggregate function to select the sum of all the item prices from the orders item table where the order ID is equal to 3. And we're going to select it and run it. And here we go. You can see that the total is $49.67. So basically what I'm getting from this last query is the total amount that a client has to pay for a particular order, because it ordered multiple items which had different prices, and I want to know how much does he have to pay for the entire order. And this is the way to do it. This is just an example. So these are just some of the aggregate functions that are available. So if we go to the resource center and look for aggregate functions and SQL Server 2012, look for that. Oh, it's more than 2012. Okay, my bad. Okay, going to the first one, and we're going to see a list over here of supported aggregate functions like count, grouping, count big. In this case, count big is used for returning exceptionally big numbers. Minimum, sum, standard deviation, variance, max, and all the others. And if you don't know what one means, just go to the name, click it, and again we have the standard page where you can see the syntax and explanations for that functionality. But the most frequently used ones are min, max, sum, and count.